What is up, all you beautiful, wonderful YouTube people? I'm Eric.
And I'm Jonathan.
Are you?
I hope so.
Merry Christmas to all of you guys as well. We are Team Badman, and this is a little bit of a video that's kind of been in the making for us. About 2 weeks back, we released a match video between Jonathan and I, which was a Wheelo mirror match. I played my blue Wheelo, he played his orange Wheelo, and it kind of ended in a way that you just never even imagined possible. It was just revival bouncing off of revival, and it became both a combination of a joke and a really amazing thing between us. And it's also caused a lot of questions about our Wheelo decks and how they run, how they function, how they've been for us. So as a bit of a Christmas gift to you guys, we decided to break down each of our Wheelo decks, how they operate, and maybe you guys will get some ideas for some Wheelo decks of your own. So naturally, with both of us playing Wheelo decks, we are going to have a lot of cards in common, that we run in both of our decks and that you're almost always going to run into. So I figure, why not go over those first?
Yep.
Alright, so first off, if you're playing Dr. Wheelo, you always need to have the name cards. So we've got 3 Dr. Wheelo's Revival. Of course, it's a great card as just a setup alone. It shuts off all events for your opponent. You gain 2 stages and goes right back into the life deck. But the really big key is when it gets destroyed off the life deck, it forces your opponent to mill 3 cards, which is really nice because it's an immediate interrupt for any damage. It triggers off of your own mill effects. It's a really powerful milling tool, and when you get to the higher levels, it gets even stronger because Wheelo adds extra damage to all of the mill effects.
And just to kind of piggyback on what Eric said about the events, one difference you'll see between our decks is that he has Villainous Energy Spheres and I don't. But being able to actually use Wheelo's Revival and shuffle it into your deck, it shuts off events from your opponents, so you don't have to worry about them having a sphere when you use Dr. Wheelo's History, for example, and they can't necessarily stop your mill effects.
Exactly. It also works really nicely if your opponent's going to trigger off a Visiting the Past and maybe grab a sphere or grab a Times the Warrior's tool, or in the mirror match, maybe Orange Destruction or something like that. So it's really nice to have that to shut them off. As you mentioned also, you need to have the other Wheelo card, 3 Dr. Wheelo's History. It's an immediate mill of 3, or you can lower your MP 1 level to change that to a 5 mill, which is something really easy to do with Wheelo because of just how easy it is for the decks to get off 1. His initial effect sets your anger to 3, and then all you need is 1 2 anger card, or a well-timed block or something, and you're jumping right up to 2, which is something that both of our decks have.
And if you get to the higher levels, like at level 4, you don't even need a lower level, and it's still going to do 5 regardless. So
it's nice to have mill. The only caveat with both of Dr. Wheelo's cards is they are banished after use. Wheelo's Revival coming from the top of the deck, and Wheelo's History when you play it. But there are some other cards that kind of help us work around that, and the best example is Defiant Challenge. Both of us run 2 Defiant Challenge, and while you lose a little bit of the effect with not being able to pull out a named attack, the ability to get either History or Revival back into the life deck is just so insanely powerful. With Revival, your deck basically becomes a kind of time bomb. Your opponent doesn't know when they're going to hit them. And, History, you can always pull it for an immediate mill, which is, that's the whole name of the deck, so.
I don't have much to add to that, but, just thinking about having Revival in there 5 times, that's an automatic 15 mil, plus, maybe even 2 each time with higher levels, so, even if you can mill a third of your opponent's deck, that's pretty nice.
Works out pretty nicely. Along with that, 2 stare downs.
Yep.
Stare down for a little bit of hand advantage. If your opponent has a sphere in their hand, it basically forces them to use it, or they're going to lose it. It works if you're going for a little bit more of an offensive kind of turn. In my case, with cards like Blue Slash, Blue Floating Beam, and Blue Hand Blast. Yours with PowerPoint and Stare Down. So you can force out some of those valuable blocks. And, that's useful, once again, with the higher levels. Like, level 2, you get the +2 life card buff. Level 3, when you hit with a successful attack, your opponent mills 2 life cards off the top of their deck, and you rejuvenate 2. So it's always nice to have the hand disruption. 2, Visiting the Past, which they're pretty self-explanatory. Being able to pull any card out of your discard pile at any time is a really nice effect.
Yep.
1, Villainous Visage, which fits completely with Wheelo's mill effect. Plus, it's an insanely powerful board presence to see. It's going to make your opponent think twice before throwing an attack when they know you can bounce it back for double the life card damage. One lookout drill for examples when you run to other mill matchups. Wheelo mirrors, Android 20 now is a really popular choice. Sane Raditz with the Menace Loop and the milling off the deck. So it's nice to be able to have that available to stop some of that disruption. And then, of course, one time as a Warrior's tool. It's mandatory in any deck, being able to stop all attacks in the turn. You have to have it at this point. So that is it for the common cards that both of our decks share. It makes up about a quarter of the deck, which is kind of expected, considering how many common and powerful cards that they're going to run. But the major differences between our decks come from all of the styled cards, and it changes up each of our approaches a little bit. So I'm going to go on ahead and let Jonathan break down his deck for you first. So Jonathan, take it away.
Okay. So first I'll start with the events. One of my favorite cards in this deck is Orange Destruction. And as we'll get into the drills later, we'll get a total count of how many I have, but just for the fact of being able to mill cards for the number of drills you have +1, plus any bonuses from Wheelo's effect, I have 2 Orange Destructions in my deck, so even using that, and let's just say I can mill 10 each time, that's pretty impressive. And then really the only other styled event I have in my deck is Orange Dodge. I mean, it's nice because it prevents all damage, but I mostly have it in there to move some drills around, pull one out of play, put one in my hand. It works nicely with Possession Drill. If I have a dead hand, I can put a drill in my hand and then ditch it for 2 new cards. But I also have some drills in here like Crashing Drill. And so when that leaves play, my opponent would mill a card. Just having that at level 3 or 4 will add an extra mill or 2. So just doing even that a couple of times, I can take out a decent amount of my opponent's deck. Moving on from events, we'll go to physical combats. I really don't have that many physical attacks. I have Orange Launcher just because of the amount of control it gives you. Just to start off, it has Endurance 1. But it's a physical attack for 3 life cards. If I'm at level 2, it does an additional 2 life cards, so that's possible critical damage there. But if not, it still automatically gives you a critical damage effect. So you have the Anger control, you can steal a Dragon Ball, crit an ally, and it'll trigger my Mastery. So I'm using the Orange Adaptive Mastery, and so whenever I use a critical damage effect at the end of combat, I can pull a drill out of my discard pile. And so for those reasons, I have 3 Orange Launchers in there. And then I also have 3 Orange Uppercuts. I really have it in there, not necessarily for the +4 stages of damage, because quite honestly, it's only going to do 4 stages of damage. But I have it in there to pull out the key energy combat cards I have in this deck. So I don't mind paying the 2 power stages to get some energy combat cards. And we'll get into those in just a minute. In terms of physical blocks, I have 2 Orange Quick Dodges. It's good because it gives me 5 stages back, so I can either pay stages for Orange Uppercut, do a couple energy attacks, just absorb some damage if it's a bad combat. And it also prevents 1 stage of damage from all my opponent's attacks as combat, so it does help a little bit just to mitigate the damage. I have 2 Orange Cover-Ups. It has Endurance 1, which is nice, but it stops a physical and then also stops a physical on my opponent's next action. So if I'm going up against maybe a Saiyan deck or a Turles deck of any color, just one of those physical heavy decks, it'll help protect me for a couple turns. Or at least make my opponent think about what his next action is going to be if he knows that physical attack is going to be stopped. And then my last physical block I have is Orange Refocus, and so that one's also Endurance 1. It raises my anger, which could be helpful, but it's not necessarily the main means of leveling that I have in this deck. But most importantly, I can search my discard pile for a drill and place it into play. So that'll be helpful to set up my next turn, possibly pull a Devouring Drill out of my discard pile, and so if I'm entering combat, or if it's my turn after combat, I can hopefully play another drill and advance the level. So from there we'll go into energy combats. In terms of blocks, I have 2 Orange Energy Evasions. This one's also good because I can use that, and if I have a drill in my discard pile, I can rejuvenate it, which saves a drill, and I gain 4 stages. So it's also good to get those stages back. I have Orange Energy Absorption, another Endurance 1 card. I have 2 of these in here. And I gain 5 stages and raise my anger 1. So just another block to gain some anger, but just give me those stages back because, as we know, Wheelo is either in A or B for most of his levels, so you're really not going to have too much help in those physical matchups. And then the last energy block I have is Orange Nudge. I have 2 of those in here. And this one is more for some special mill effects. So I destroy one of my drills and place it back into play at the end of combat. So that's good for Orange Crashing Drill, where whenever that leaves play, my opponent mills a card, and whenever it enters play during combat, my opponent mills a card. So just even using that one combat, it's 2 mil there. And then you couple that with Orange Torching Drill, and so whenever one of my drills enters play during combat, my opponent mills a card. So just doing that a couple times, whether it's Crashing Drill or any other drill, it's still going to be an automatic 1 mil or more. And then couple that with my powers, it could be pretty nasty for just moving one drill in and out of play for one combat. So that's what I have in terms of energy blocks. In terms of energy attacks, I basically have 2 things that I'm going for here. So the nice thing about level 1 for Dr. Wheelo is with his power you automatically set your anger to 3. So then you just need usually 2, possibly 3 more anger to level depending on if you're playing against a blue deck. But Orange Rage does 5 life cards and raises your anger 2. So using Wheelo's power, and then Orange Rage will get you up to level 2 pretty quickly. And then on top of that, it's a nice 6 life cards at least with the mastery, but if you're at level 2, it could be an 8 life card energy attack. And it's endurance 1, so it's good all around. I have 2 of those in here. More of an annoying energy attack, I have Orange Eruption in here. 2 of those. The downside, it is banished after use, but it only costs 1 stage to use. Damages 2 life cards, so 3 with the mastery, but if you're at level 2, it's a 5 life card energy attack, and that's nothing to laugh at. So it's good from that standpoint, but it raises your anger 2 and lowers your opponent's anger 2. So it gives you some anger control, and it makes it easier for you to hop up to at least level 2 or higher, depending on how much anger you get. But like I said before, anger is not the main means to level, especially after level 2. I run 2 orange stare downs in here just to give some board control, so banishing an opponent's setup drill or ally is pretty important. But like the other energy attacks, it's going to be 5 life cards just with mastery, and possibly 7 with Wheelo's level 2 power, so it's still just another powerful energy attack along with the board control. Then my last couple energy attacks, I have 3 orange power points. Primarily it's for the hit effect to pull out some drills, but it's going to be an energy attack for at least 7 life cards, possibly 9 with Dr. Wheelo's level 2 power. So either it's going to pull out a drill or it's going to force my opponent to block, hopefully. And it's endurance 3, so it's still good to have in the deck. And then really one of my favorite new energy attacks out of the new set is Orange Drain, and I run 2 of those in here. It's an energy attack, and really the damage is only 2 stages and 2 life cards, so 3 life cards with mastery, possibly 5 with my level 2 power. But the effect of the card is the next time one of your attacks causes you to change levels this combat, you may search your life deck for a styled event and place it into your hand. And so thinking about that, especially if you're at level 1, or you have a couple of those anger cards, you use this card and you level up, you get to search your deck for Orange Destruction, and then you get a pretty nasty mill effect. So it's just a good way to search that out. If you're low on defenses, you can search for Orange Dodge to at least prevent some damage and cycle those drills in and out for more mill effects too. So it's pretty useful all around, and it does have a hit effect to raise your anger, so this card itself could actually help you anger up and advance to level 2 to trigger that effect. And so now from here, pretty much the rest of the deck is drills. I mean, that's what you would expect from an orange deck, right? So the first one I've mentioned a couple times is Orange Crashing Drill. So whenever it enters play during combat, my opponent destroys the top card of his life deck. And likewise, when it leaves play during combat, it does the same thing. So just coupling that with a few of the effects that I've mentioned before, with Orange Torching Drill, with a couple of the block cards to bring it out of play, and then just even coupling that with Dr. Wheelo's mill effects at higher levels, it can be a pretty nasty drill for my opponent to deal with later in the game. The next drill I have is Orange Hiding Drill. That one's pretty self-explanatory, but just reducing my opponent's attacks by 2 life cards is pretty helpful. Especially with this deck, it doesn't necessarily have the block ability of, let's say, the Blue Wheelo that Erik's going to talk about, but this does help mitigate some of the damage and keep the deck around a little bit longer. I have Orange Possession Drill, and so this helps me get out of dead hands, especially if I draw multiple drills. I can draw 2 cards and then discard one of those drills. So it's a pretty useful drill just to have a little bit more control and make even a dead hand better. I have Orange Guardian Drill, which is good also for those dead hands, so I could put a setup or drill into play. It's also good with Orange Torching Drill, so if it's during combat and I use Guardian Drill to place a drill into play, it would cause my opponent to mill a card. So it has that extra effect there. The next drill I have is Orange Torching Drill, and that's just whenever one of my drills enters play during combat, I destroy a top card of my opponent's life deck. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. I've talked about it a couple times, but it's just an extra mill. At higher levels, it could be for a mill for 1 or 2 extra cards. So that'll start to chip away at my opponent's life deck. I have Orange Empowered Drill in here. And Orange Empowered Drill has a couple things going for it. For one, it's Endurance 2, so for a drill that's nice if I do have to start enduring some damage, but hopefully I'd like to keep this drill out and in play. So it increases my PUR by 1, which, especially for Dr. Wheelo's level 1, is important. At higher levels it's not so bad when its power up rating is higher, but it's still good to have that extra power stage. And at the beginning of each one of my turns, my opponent banishes the bottom 3 cards of his discard pile. So one of the things you'll see about this deck, especially compared to like a maybe like a Wheelo black deck, it doesn't really have the discard targeting effects to banish cards. So just having Orange Empowered Drill can give me some control of my opponent's discard pile and get rid of some of the key cards that I really can't get rid of any other way. The next drill I have is Orange Focusing Drill, and that one's just good to protect my drills from other card effects. So an Orange Mirror Match, Orange Stare Down, Blue Betrayal, especially Dynamic Dragon Ball 4, which can get rid of 2 drills possibly, so it just adds that protective effect so I can keep as many drills out as possible. The next 2 drills I have are for defensive reasons. So I have Orange Steady Drill and Orange Burning Aura Drill. Each one of those defense shield. Steady Drill for the first unstopped energy attack, and Burning Aura Drill for the first unstopped physical attack. So those are good just to add extra defenses, but also if I'm at level 2, my opponent mills a card every time I stop one of his attacks, so that'll just help me trigger some more mill effects. The next drill I have in here is a new addition for me. It's Orange Investigation Drill, and this is a new one from Step 4. The immediate effect of the drill: after this drill enters play, you may banish an attached card in play. Eric and I were actually talking about this just a few minutes ago, but there's a lot of attached cards that can be pretty nasty, so in my case not so much, but Wallbreaker. But if you think about the opponent you're playing, so Raditz is Offensive Guard. If you're thinking about Android 19, either of his name cards you can get rid of. If your opponent has any attached Saiyan cards that can either rejuvenate cards, banish cards, Tree of Might to add damage. So there's a lot of cards to think about even just for that effect when it comes into play. And then the constant effect is whenever an effect would lower my anger by more than 1, it reduces that amount to 1. So if I'm not getting Orange Devouring Drill to advance the level and I'm using those 2 anger cards, it can help protect me against especially some of the blue cards, but even Shoulder Slam, Devastating Blow, some of those cards that can reduce your anger by more than 1. And the last drill I have is Orange Devouring Drill, and I have 3 of those in here. And that's just to help me get to level 4 or even level 3 more quickly. So I have those in there to banish when I play another drill to advance the level. So if you count each unique drill, so I'm only going to count 1 Devouring Drill. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 drills, including Lookout Drill. So if you just think about that with Orange Destruction, that's a mill of 13 at full power. So couple that with level 4, and that's a mill of 15. So do that a couple times, and that's half my opponent's life deck. But the biggest thing you'll see here is that I want to get to level 3 and level 4 primarily, and use those effects to rejuvenate a lot of my key styled cards and just increase the mill effect and just out-survive my opponent. That's all I have for the orange deck, and now here comes Eric's Blue Wheelo.
Alright, yeah, so my deck is a Blue Protective Wheelo, which I think for anyone who saw Blue Wheelo is pretty expected. He works very well with the Protective Mastery. Him having such a low power level, it's nice to have the ability for added blocks in the event of an emergency. You know, you can always pitch an energy to the Mastery in order to protect from what could be a really powerful physical attack. So that's nice. Blue also has some excellent milling cards and a lot of effects that work really nicely with Wheelo. So there's a whole lot of survivability in this deck. It turtles really, really well, and it does a very nice job at the whole defensive kind of mill game, which you've really come to expect from Wheelo. So I'm definitely enjoying it. And I'm going to go on ahead and start off with the deck build where Jonathan ended his. So I'm going to start with drills this time. I run 2 blue overpowering drill, which is a little bit different of a choice for blue Wheelo, considering that most decks will opt to run dominance instead, so that way they can get up to level 2 at just about any point that they need and keep some of those drills out. But I like the ability of using blue overpowering drill because since Wheelo is a defensive deck, you're going to be blocking a lot, playing very passively at some points. And Wheelo has some extremely powerful abilities when you get to level 3 and even level 4. So I like having a little bit more flexibility to get up there if I really want to, as opposed to only having a leveling engine through dominance. So I play 2 of these, and they've actually worked astoundingly well. I've gotten up to 3 in several matches, and it's worked out really nicely. Plus it works well against other blue decks that you may run into, or if you decide to just use it with Wheelo's level 1 and use it as an extra way to help you level off that in combination with his level 1 power. So it works really nicely with that. I've been enjoying using it. It's something that I definitely recommend trying. I run 2 blue positioning drill. Positioning drill works very well in conjunction with overpowering drill and the whole defensive mechanism once again, because every time you block an attack, you get to take a styled card and place it on top of your life deck. If you're in a really big pinch, you can always put Endurance on the top. You could throw an Endurance 2 card like Blue Shifting Maneuver, or Blue Narrow Escape for 3 Endurance. Or if it's the last of your opponent's attack, you can always recycle valuable cards like Blue Hand Blast or Blue Slash. And it's really nice to have that. It really aids in survivability, and it's just such a powerful tool to have, especially sitting on level 2, which is really nice because every time you stop an attack, your opponent mills a card, you get to put a card back on top of your life deck, and if you have overpowering drill out, that's an extra anger, which is really nice. And lastly, I've got 1 blue mental drill. That's mainly for insight into the opponent. Being able to see into the opponent's hand is a really, really powerful tool. It helps me know how I should play defensively at some points, or if I can play offensively at other times. Plus, in a pinch, it's Endurance 2, which is another nice utility to have, especially in blue. And that is it for the drills. So I'm going to jump straight over into the events. I don't have a whole lot of other events besides the freestyle ones. Like Jonathan said, I do run 2 Villainous Energy Sphere in here. Villainous Energy Sphere is really nice to have for when you don't have Revival out and can't shut down opponent's events. It keeps a little bit more on the offensive side if your opponent tries to block with an event like Orange Dodge or Red Stop or Time. If your opponent tries to stare down your hand, it shuts that down. Plus, it also adds to the mill mechanic, and on Wheelo's higher levels, that combos well, and it adds extra rejuvenation, extra cards of damage. It's just such a nice tool to have, but 3 is a little bit excessive even for defensive decks, so 2 is a good count. And I also run 3 Blue Shifting Maneuver. It is an Omniblock event, Endurance 2. And if your anger is 3 or above, as opposed to being banished after use, is only discarded after use. This is really nice to have in the early game when Wheelo's on his level 1, so all I have to do is use his ability, and the block goes directly back to the discard pile. You can stack it back on with Positioning Drill. If you're in a major pinch, you can always get it back with Visiting the Past. It's nice to have, especially for such a defensive deck. So I'm going to jump into the physical combats next. For an MP who doesn't have a whole lot of offensive power, there are quite a few physical attacks in here, but they're mainly used for their utility. The first of these, of course, is 3 Blue Head Knock. Blue Head Knock being one of the few physical combat cards, both in the style and in the game, that deal straight life card damage. 5 life cards is a really nice amount of damage. If you don't run into any endurance in your opponent, that's automatic critical damage. Plus, it lowers your opponent's anger to 0 immediately. which is great against speed anger decks, against Saiyan decks, Garlic Jr., some of the newer red decks you may see on the circuit, Red Android 17, Red Android 19, things like that. So that's nice to have. Plus another card with Endurance too, very useful to have in a pinch. There are 3 Blue Betrayal, which it's never a card meant for the power. AT Sages isn't super strong, but the ability to banish an opponent's setup drill or ally in play is phenomenal board presence. It's not quite as useful against allies anymore since there's a little bit more of an ally recursion engine from the banish zone. Android 17's Van, the new blue tag team mastery. But it's really nice for getting some of those really pesky seps and drills off the board. Orange's defensive drills are good targets. Blue positioning drill and blue metal drill are great choices. Visiting the past. There are a ton of targets you can use with this, and it's really nice for what could really end up messing you over at some point in the game. 3 Blue Slash. Blue Slash is an absolutely excellent card for this deck. Flat single life card damage, so it's not going to do a whole lot offensively, but the hit effect destroys the top X cards of your opponent's life deck equal to 6 minus their current anger. Since we are using the Blue Protective Mastery, it requires 6 anger for our opponent to level, so no matter what anger that, it is always going to mill something. But kind of the dream is hitting them successfully when they're at 0 anger, and I know it's happened for me many a time. Hitting them for a full 6 mil, that's 1/10 of their deck right out of the gate, and that you can get rid of some really significant card coverage, especially if your opponent has, say they're Namekian and play Dragon Ball 7 to stack some cards on top of their life deck. You can ruin that. You can ruin fellow positioning drills. It's just such a powerful mechanic with Wheelo that it's too good not to pass up. I have 3 Blue Takedown in here. Takedown is a really nice card, once again, for those speed anger and leveling decks. Lowers your opponent's anger 1, and if it lowered it from 1 to 0, it drops their MP an entire MP level, which is really nice against some decks that kind of thrive on maybe camping on a higher level or leveling to some of those higher levels. Dominance decks would be a great example. You can force their anger up using the mastery and then drop them back down by throwing takedown. It's nice if you're playing against Garlic or just about anything that's looking to MPPV on you. So it keeps that in check. Plus, if you de-level them, that sets them at 5 stages above, so it's an almost guaranteed stage lock. That's really nice for some of the heavier anger or heavier energy kind of decks. So it's a very useful tool for that. Speaking of anger, I do run 2 Wallbreaker in here. Wallbreaker is just a really nice tool to have for some of those, for keeping some of those decks in check that have a little bit easier of a time kind of doing the power leveling thing. There are a lot more answers to it now. Sagacious Strike is a great example, or some of the cards that just automatically deal critical damage if they hit. Red Static Shot's a great example. But since it's such a defensive deck, you're usually not worried about getting hit with any of those, and it's really easy to leave some decks just completely stuck. Piccolo's a great example where neither his old level 1 or new level 1 ability really help for getting Wallbreaker off, and he's almost completely relegated to Focused Assault. So it does a really nice shutdown on decks like that. My last physical attack is 2 Sagacious Strike. Sagacious Strike is nice for a number of reasons. As just a regular attack, Tactile +3 isn't too bad. The most of the time it'll just be doing 3 stages of damage. The automatic critical damage ability of it is nice. Plus, if I need to pop off Wallbreaker for whatever reason, or Black Capture, or if I want to capture Dragon Ball, I can just tell it to deal no damage and it will automatically go through. That's a really nice ability to have. I think villains definitely got the better end of the stick compared to heroes with Focused Assault. So, it's a really nice choice to have. My physical blocks, I'm actually not running as many as I originally thought. My only physical blocks are 3 Blue Safeguard. Endurance 1 is fairly nice to have. But the major benefit is if your opponent's anger is 0, you raise your own anger 2 levels. So this is really nice against some of those passive physical decks that don't really want to gain any anger, or that don't actually gain any anger for some of their attacks. Blue physical decks would be a really good example. Some of the newer Saiyan decks or even black decks are the same way. So if you combine it with a level 1 power, set your anger up to 3, block with this, and you can go from 1 to 2 in just one pair of actions. It's nice to have, plus it stops physical attack, which is something Wheelo is generally pretty weak to with such a low power level. So that's always nice to have. If you need to pitch it to the master in a pinch, you can always do that as well. So next, I'm going to go on ahead and finish it out with my energy combat cards. Wheelo definitely does better with some of the energy attacks, and there are some great ones to use in blue. The first one is 3 Blue Hand Blast. It's an energy attack, 3 stages for 5 life, and it raises your anger 2. This works once again with Wheelo's level 1. You throw Wheelo's ability, and then you pitch out Blue Hand Blast. That's automatically leveling. Plus, if it hits, you lower your opponent's anger 2 levels, so it gives you a bit more anger control. 3 stages for 5 life is a little bit steep, so most of the time I try to use this if I'm going to level either soon or immediately with the attack. But, it's a solid energy attack. It can deal critical damage. With the extra power on his level 2, it's 3 for 7, which turns out to be actually a relatively nice energy attack. So it gives a little bit of offensive mobility to Wheelo when I'm not trying to play the deliberate mill game. I have 2 Blue Arm Blast, another energy attack for 5 life, this one for 2 stages. And I can also play it to stop a physical attack in a pinch. So that's a little bit of the reason why I'm only running the 3 physical blocks. Plus there are the added event blocks on the Mastery as well. So there are plenty of ways to address physicals, but in a pinch I can always go on ahead and pitch this to stop a physical, which is nice to have because it serves multiple purposes. 2 Blue Floating Beam. This one's actually a lot of fun to use. It's 2 stages for 6 life. You automatically raise your anger, and you can raise your opponent's anger. Because the add effect is if your opponent's anger is at 4 or higher, the attack cannot be stopped and will automatically go through. This is really useful to play at the right times against, some of the faster kind of anger decks. Garlic Jr. would be a great example. You can really kind of stick them at level 4. If they think they're right about to win, you can always just bump up their anger with Floating Beam, and then you can hit them outright for what would become 9 life, 11 if you're on Dr. Wheelo's level 2. So there's a lot of fun to have with it. I've hit many times with it. The only downer to it is that it is banish after use, because it'd be nice to be able to just keep reusing that ability. Keep the opponent's anger higher just so they'll purposely hit. But it does quite a bit of work, and it's a nice energy card to have. Blue Terror. Blue Terror is just one of the most phenomenal cards in the entire style. Being able to pull any card out of your life deck that's not a Dragon Ball is absolutely excellent. You can pull out blocks if you need them. You can always pull out time. You can pull out Stare Down if you've got a specific card that you want to drop out of your opponent's hand. I could pull out a Sphere to counteract an opponent's events. I could pull out another attack. Pull a Blue Slash, pull a Blue Arm Blast. There's just so much utility that you can have out of it. The only downer is that it is limit 1, but with that kind of power, it's expected. So it's just such a great tool to have. I don't know why you wouldn't run it. My last energy attack is 2 Withering Fire. 2 stages for 4 life and banish an opponent's drills. So it's a little bit of added board control along with the Blue Betrayal. Drills can be a little bit more of a concern, especially nowadays with Android 20 really picking up and some of the more defensive blue kind of decks wanting to play a whole lot of drills, especially the dominance builds. So this works for getting a lot of valuable drills off the board. Lookout Drill is a very common target because you want to keep that mill going through at all times, so getting rid of that is great. Defensive drills are always nice to get out. Possession Drill, Black Smoothness Drill. There are a bunch of targets that you can hit with Withering Fire, and it's really nice to have. It's not super strong offensively, but that's not really what you're looking for with it, so it stays at a comfortable 2. And my energy blocks are primarily used for their utility as well. I have 3 Blue Barrier to stop an energy attack and to pop off an opponent's ally. This works a little bit better against the frequent ally engines that you'll run into, especially Android 17, where as opposed to being able to pull allies out of the discard pile using the primary card, they have to pull them out of the banish zone. So as long as you can keep them in the discard pile, there's not so much they can really do with it. So this helps to especially get rid of allies like Frieza, who banishes life card damage, Android 20, who prevents you from using endurance against any attacks, Captain Ginyu, who gives you a basic mental drill. So it's nice to pop them off. And lastly, I've got 3 blue Narrow Escape, which is probably the style's best block. Endurance 3 is phenomenal. You get to choose 2 energy combats in your discard pile and place them on top of your life deck whenever you block with it. So, you can, if you've got Narrow Escapes in the discard pile, you can always put those on top of the Great Endurance. You can put Blue Hand Blast on there so that you can gain anger off of it. You can pull just about anything back that you really need. So it's an excellent block to have. It's never one that goes to waste. And, it's a great addition to what I think is a really, really good deck. So that is it for our Wheelo decks. I don't know about you, but I've definitely been enjoying playing Wheelo. I'm a little bit more of, an aggressive deck kind of player. I enjoy my Android 17 and Android 18. Saiyan style is a whole lot of fun for me. So being a little bit more passive in gameplay with a deck like Wheelo has actually been really refreshing and a whole lot of fun for some matches.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, you're more of an aggressive player than I am, but it's still a big difference from like even the Blue Piccolo I was running, where it's more of a kind of control everything, where this is just just controlling that one mill effect and just running with it. But it's definitely a lot of fun. You never know what's going to happen. As we saw with our mirror match, you never know when you're going to get a pretty epic ending of Wheelo versus Wheelo. But I think that Dr. Wheelo's Revival is even a surprise for you when it comes up. So it just makes every match fun, and you never know what when things are going to happen, and when you're going to mill your opponent for 15 life cards. So give it a try. There's a lot of different styles. There's black, but as you can see, there's blue and orange, and you can make them work. So
absolutely. Special thanks on my end to Erik Jennings, who played a blue Wheelo deck at the Chicago regional event, which is where I got the idea to originally build it. He's been a great help in giving me a little bit of feedback on it, some ideas for cards that I should run in it, cards that I shouldn't. So it's been a whole lot of fun. It's definitely what can be a surprising competitive level deck, especially nowadays with a little bit more of the kind of aggressive run around, the popularity of some of those anger decks. From the look of it, some of the red and rage decks are really going to kind of pick up. So this could be a fairly solid answer to some of them. It does have its weaknesses. Anyone that runs Dragon Balls is basically going to kind of leave you stuck unless you can get on a little bit more of an offensive bent. But it really is a whole lot of fun, and we definitely recommend you guys try it. So that has been it for our deck breakdowns. If you guys haven't seen the match already that we are talking about, I will include a link down below, or it'll be right over here in the video somewhere. Somewhere right like here, yeah. Where you guys can check it out. It actually is a really, really fun match, one that we argue so far has been the best on the channel, and we think you guys will definitely enjoy it. We completely encourage you guys to try this deck. It's just been a whole lot of fun, and we hope to see a lot more of it out on the circuit. If you guys haven't already, go on ahead and click the subscribe button down below. Also, if you guys like the video, go on ahead and click the like button down below. And if you guys didn't, click the dislike button down below and leave us a comment as to why you guys didn't like it. We're always looking for feedback, always looking to make the product better. We do this for you guys, so we always want your guys' feedback. Let us know what you would like to see. Also, we do have some really exciting content coming up throughout the start of the new year, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. And as always, guys, stay bad. Thanks for watching.